the streets. I know many people think that. I think that's a way to just buffer their own denial. But if we treat them, if we get them the medicine that they need, and we get them the treatment that they need, they don't come back, folks. We've turned it upside down. That is why we are seeing this wildfire going across the United States called the collaborative courts. Because people are realizing that we're saving lives and we're saving money. There has not been one person, now I'll tell you this, everyone that has ever criticized our court and criticized me for doing what I do, there has not been one person that has ever left my courtroom, guaranteed, that has not walked out of that courtroom that isn't impressed by what we're doing. And that means everyone from the legislature. I've had representatives from federal, state, local agencies that walk out of there and say, why in the hell aren't we doing this more? Because they get to hear how this affects. It just doesn't affect the person that's sick. They have family. Many of them have children. Many of them are children of people, brothers, sisters, and it affects all of them. If you ever want to know how these courts work, come to a graduation and see what they were like when they came in. And they'll talk about what they were like and when they graduate. You listen to the family, you listen to the people that treated them, all those folks will tell you that it's been a miracle. So just to give you a quick rundown of who the parties are involved, the district attorney, we got them on board. That was not easy. The public defender, the healthcare agency of Orange County, the probation department of Orange County, and the Veterans Administration, because we also have a Veterans Court. We sit down and we work together with one goal, and that's to try to help this person and keep them from coming back. What an amazing idea. And when you walk into the court, it becomes apparent immediately that this is a very different court. That the judge, the guy wearing the robe or the gal wearing the robe, really does care. And once the person that's in front of you knows that, you've got to. Because if they know that every person, I tell this to every defendant that I've ever seen, look around, there's not a person in this courtroom that does not want you to succeed. Once they have acceptance of that, I could tell them to go stand in the corner on their head for 2 hours, and they would do it because they know what we're trying to do is to help them. I would never allow anything in the court to happen that was not here to keep them from coming back. So does it work? Absolutely. The proof is in the pudding. The proof is in those that are in our recidivism rate and the money that we have saved. Millions, folks. We have saved since the beginning of the collaborative courts. I don't have it on my head. I used to have it right off the top of my head. Kathy, do you have any idea? It's got to be somewhere around $9 or $10 million, easy, in incarceration costs. And that's growing daily. Because instead of sitting in jail, they're in our court. And then they go out and they start working because they've finally been treated. So the bottom line is about these collaborative courts, if you ever want to know about them and what we're trying to do, is the bottom line is that we're helping people to never come back into the system, and that's not easy. And it takes some time, but it takes incredible professionals that we have in these courts, caring professionals, to keep these folks from coming back in. So if you ever want to go take a look, go to 909 North Main Street and walk into that court and watch what they do.
Thank you. Thank you so much for taking your time to come and speak today. The collaborative courts is also listed on the resource sheet that we have up here on the front table if you want to come and get more information on the different resources in the community. Thank you so much for taking your time out of your busy day, Joe. Really appreciate it. And now, Maurice.
All right. Can you hear me all right? My name is Maurice Posley. I spent about 35 years as a journalist, most of it in Chicago, most of it the Chicago Tribune, most of it covering the criminal justice system, state and federal. The last 10 years was spent working as an investigative reporter, working on systemic problems in the criminal justice system as well as individual cases of wrongful conviction. By that I mean myself and a couple other reporters took on the death penalty in Illinois, the death penalty in Texas. We looked at wrongful executions, and by that executing what people that were suspected to be actually innocent. We looked at false and coerced confessions, bad forensics, led to a number of reforms in Illinois. I actually didn't think I'd live to see the day that the death penalty was abolished in Illinois, but it has been. I left the Tribune in 2008 and wound up coming to California to work for the Northern California Innocence Project to do an investigative project on prosecutorial misconduct. That was published in 2010, and in 2012 I hooked up with the launch of where I am now. It's called the National Registry of Exonerations. If you Google it, it comes right up. We just added the 2000th case of someone who was wrongly convicted of a crime since 1989. We picked 1989 because that was the year of the first DNA exoneration in this country, and it sort of ushered in a new era of truth-telling, you might say. It's sort of the gold standard, DNA, some call it, but the minority of cases of wrongful conviction are DNA cases. The majority are non-DNA cases. If you go to that website, it's searchable by state, by county, by a whole bunch of variables to see. We catalog 6 different causes of wrongful conviction. Official misconduct, inadequate legal defense, bad forensics, false confession, mistaken witness identification, and perjury, false accusation. I could tell you all sorts of statistics about it. I come from the background of investigating why cases go wrong, why people get wrongfully convicted. Of the 2,000 cases in the registry, about 20%, there was no crime. That means that either it was an accident, it was a suicide instead of a homicide, it was an accidental fire instead of an arson, it was a child that fell instead of a shaken baby case, or it was an outright lie of something that did not actually occur. And that's the majority. The number one cause of false conviction is perjury or false accusation. Whether it's a false accusation by a victim or a witness or an official related to the case. We are about to publish next week 2 reports that you can find. You'll be able to find on the website. One is our annual report on exonerations in 2016, and we're setting another record. 166 people were exonerated in 2016 of crimes they didn't commit. 74 of them pled guilty. We heard some talk about people who plead guilty, and one of the, you go back to the mandatory sentencing laws that were enacted in this country that were, as part of the crackdown and get tough on crime. And when the reality of it is that innocence doesn't really matter in a lot of these cases. It's how long am I going to get, and then I'm going to get out. And people plead guilty to crimes they did not commit because it is the expedient thing to do. There's a particular phenomenon in Harris County, Texas, which is Houston, where people pled guilty to drug crimes, and it's very unusual, but the crime lab there tested what was seized, even though people had already pled guilty. And they were sending the reports into the district attorney's office, and they were kind of going into like a dead letter file because these cases they pled guilty, they were over it. And somebody finally started looking at them, and they found all these reports that said that there was no controlled substance was found with Now, some of these people probably thought they had dope and, they bought bunk, but some of these people, when you see the stories, hear the stories, it was a false field test. Almost all of these were the result of a false field test, a false positive. And they come into court, and they're offered a one-day sale, plead guilty, 6 months, 1 year, 30 days, 5 days, whatever, or you can sit in jail until the case comes up, and maybe by that time you've already maxed out, depending on whether it's a misdemeanor. So, the system, people, you say, why would people plead guilty? There's all sorts of reasons. Those are the primary ones. As I could go on. People ask me how many people are wrongfully convicted, and I say, well, this sounds silly, but we only know the ones we know about. We know about the ones that are in the registry. Most of those are felonies. Innocence projects in this country, there's almost every state has one now. Some have more than one. There's at least 3 in California, 4, some law schools. And in many of the cases, they won't even take a case unless the person has at least 7 or 8 years left on their sentence. Because it takes that long to work on these cases and get to the bottom of them, unless you can get a DNA test done really quickly. And so it's a triage for them. And so people write to us, and we're a research project. We collect the data. We're the only kind of, the only database of its kind. It's called the National Registry of Exonerations because the co-founder, Sam Gross, a law professor at Michigan, who wrote about this academically in 2003, published an article in which he listed 330 cases. At that point, it was the largest collection of known exonerations. What's an exoneration? An exoneration is you're convicted, your conviction is set aside, and the case is either dismissed or you're acquitted at a retrial, and there is some evidence of innocence that emerges post-conviction that was not presented at your trial. That could be because the government hid it, the police hid it, the prosecutor hid it, the defense didn't look for it, didn't find it, ignored it. Could be that it emerged later, a recanted witness. A new witness comes forward. Every time I think I've heard it all, we get another case in the registry of someone, but we get these cases where someone reads about it or hears about it sentencing on TV and said, well, I saw that, and it wasn't a black guy, it was a white guy. And they come forward, or witnesses recant, especially in sex abuse cases that arise out of bitter divorces, or a case in Texas where a 7-year-old kid testified that his father had molested him for 3 or 4 years. And so he went away, got 20 years, and he did his 10 and got out and returned to the town. He's walking on the street, and who's he run into is now 17-year-old son who says, where have you been? You just dropped out of my life. And he said, you have no idea? It was your testimony that sent me to prison. The kid spent the next 3 years and finally convinced authorities that it was all a lie. Most wrongful convictions are 2 tragedies. The wrong person is convicted of a crime and the real person gets away. And most often they continue to do what they did in this particular case. As I said, in about 20% of the cases, there was no crime. So the tragedy there, and it ripples out from, it's not just the person, it's the families. And when a person is exonerated after 20 years or 25 years, and they come out of prison, the victim's family, who had some certainty in their lives all those years, now realizes that their anger or their feeling was misdirected because the real perpetrator isn't this person. So The registry, as I said, is online. It's moving its center of gravity from the University of Michigan Law School to the University of California, Irvine. We continue to add cases. We add about 240 cases a year, which is about what we can do physically. As I said, we just hit 2,000. It's unfortunately a growth industry.
Thank you so much, Mary. I want to announce that UCI is having an open house on March 17th.
16th.
Oh, 16th. Let me get that date right. And it is the whole program. There will be speakers, panel speakers there. There's a reception. Later on, you can just go online to UCI.
I'll give you a brief commercial. We're going to have some exonerees speak. Frankie Carrillo, who's from the area, Los Angeles area, who spent only 20 years for murder. He didn't commit. Brian Banks, who was convicted of sexual assault that never happened. I had a conversation with him yesterday, and he was telling me how he thought he was alone when he was in prison, that it only happened to him until he found out that there's something like the registry, and you can see that there are all these other people that it happened to. Barry Shack's going to be there. He's going to speak. There's going to be a bunch of speakers. Erwin Cherminsky, the law school dean, is going to speak. It's going to be a cool event.
Good. Mark your calendar. March 16th. And next we have Fabian Deborah, all the way from LA. Thank you for making that drive down here in the traffic, Fabian. Fabian is the Substance Abuse Director at Homeboy Industry. He's also head of the art department. He has a personal story to tell you, how he started in a gang, addicted, and where this Homeboy Industry has grown to supporting released prisoners and reversing recidivism across the board. They're great success in LA. We sure would like to have more of that going on down here in Orange County. Fabian?
It's amazing. I'm listening to the panel speak, and it just resonates because, I am that kid. That kid that was misguided by the traumas that exist within the complexities of our community. There is mental health. We find at Homeboy Industries that the three things that lead one to join a gang is that of trauma, complexity of the trauma. It's also the disparity, which leads to hopelessness, and also mental illness. And if we don't have one, you either have two of those or maybe all three. And those are the reasons why kids join gangs. Not because they glamorize it as if they're, not because they're glamorizing anything, and that's the misconception at times that society has. I cannot pinpoint that until eventually I start to recognize that the reason why I became derailed was due to the trauma that my father instilled in me as a child and robbed me of my innocence. He was a heroin addict, both immigrant parents. You can imagine the obstacles that come from that. I'm a first-generation Mexican-American, yet with the influx of an immigrant, you can still feel the exclusion that comes about. So eventually, as I went on, I too joined the gang because for me, that was my refuge. Although Father Greg Boyle, who is the founder of Homeboy Industries, was already in the housing projects where I grew up in the 1980s, which was the decade of violence and the decade of the crack cocaine epidemic. So it was very tough growing up in those housing projects. Yet, Father Greg came in and he starts to get to the bottom of things. Father Greg has been ahead of his times. I feel as if now they're catching up to him. He believed in giving opportunities, and in this case, he built the first thing he had was a tortilleria, a bakery. But most importantly, he wanted to get to the root of the problem, and he recognized that a lot of the youth that he was coming across were impacted by these three things that I talked about. So immediately he starts to meet their needs, and here we are 29 years later with the largest and the biggest gang intervention in the country and the national model of gang intervention. It is amazing what one man can do. He is a Caucasian Jesuit priest who really speaks fluently Spanish, sounds just like us. And but but that man invested in us. And so he created the only exit ramp out of gang violence, and that's Homeboy Industries. And so the minute you begin to invest in people, they start to feel their worth. Once they feel their worth, they begin to love themselves again. And after that, the possibilities are endless. Now I've been clean, 11 years clean and sober. I've been at Homeboy Industries. I decided to go back to school. I got my KDAC 2, which makes me the director at substance abuse at Homeboy Industries. But most importantly, to be able to give my mom that gift, the gift that she can now sleep at night and no longer have to worry about her son. I too was dancing around those pipelines. I too recognized that the pipelines still exist for my children if I don't educate or guide them or embrace them in the right way. But the beautiful thing is though that I'm aware now, and so I can educate and inform and make sure that I do what I need to do in order for them not to fall in disparity. And that's the amazing part that not only comes from Homeboy, but my own personal experience. It is important that we give people opportunity, that we empower, and also acknowledge that the experience is as valid as professionalism. My job is to continue to break those stereotypes that exist within my community through identity, culture, religion, and gender, to call to action those institutions that can actually give the end result. I am here to tell you that if you follow these steps and follow this path, there will be an end result. But what happens is that usually the end result's not there. See, it's not my mom's problem. It's not my father's problem. It's a community problem. It's a public health problem. And so how do we partake? Now that my father's not in existence, knowing that a lot of these kids are growing up without a father figure, how do I contribute? How do I play that role? But it's a responsibility that I've taken upon myself. I know the hurt, I know the trauma, and I know exactly what a lot of these kids are going through, and till this day still experiencing. So if I can disturb and distract those existing pipelines to prison, then so be it. And that has been my journey now. And today I go into state prison, to Tehachapi State Prison, with an organization by the name of ACTA, and we teach art, and we embrace these guys who are in level 4. Now they call them the sensitive needs yard, individuals who have been, validated, etc., in all the prison terms, and we go in there and do art. I'm also part of the Arts for Incarcerated Youth Network, where we go into juvenile halls and camps, and I bring in art projects, art workshops, so that we can allow them, use art as a vehicle so they can begin to reimagine a future and not fall in despair again. And art plays that major role, and that's what it did for me. And so I'll tell you a little story. I know my little daughter's to my right there. She might get a little embarrassed, but anything I learned in my experience, it's a story that I say about my daughter, and it says, so she'll say to me, "Daddy, Daddy," and I say, "Yes, Maya." And she goes, "I did a drawing." Of course, she likes to be my dad, right? Since I'm an artist. And I go, "You did?" And she goes, "Yeah." I go, "Let me see your drawing." And then she'll say, "You're gonna laugh." And I said, "No, I'm not gonna laugh, Maya." And then she goes, "Okay, you better not laugh, Dad." So then she shows me her drawing. She goes, "Here it comes," shows me the drawing. And it's all these little stick figures. And I go, "Oh my God, did you do that?" Now she's all conceited. "Yes, I did." And then I said, "Do you know who Frida Kahlo is?" "No, who's Frida?" "Frida's a great Mexican artist, Mom. But you know what? I think you're better. So what I'm gonna do is take this drawing, put it in my studio, so you and I can get in competition." So what I just did there is I acknowledged my daughter. I have given her her self-worth. I have made her believe that no matter what she touches is bigger than her. I have inspired her and motivated her so she foresees future and not fall to despair. That's how we begin to make an impact in gang culture. And that's something that Father Greg instilled in us, and Homeboy Industries has all the largest, a lot of enterprises. We invest in all the homies. We love them until they learn to love themselves. And because Father Greg invested in me, the chances of that little girl sitting over there joining a gang, ridiculous. That's the way it works.
Thank you so much, Fabian. I also want to tell you that Homeboy's Industry was a part of catering a fundraiser for the Collaborative Courts Foundation. Drove all the way down here, and we are so grateful to them for all their insight and direction that they've given us about ideas for programs here in Orange County. Thanks again. And now, next. All right, Jeff, I'm telling you, he's got his 3 pages single spaced. But this is our,
I did everything.
he was a social welfare worker, a public defender, he was, what else?
That's enough.
That's enough. I give you Jeff.
Take out my sign now, please. I need to stand up because I know a number of people have walked in after we started, and actually I see some old faces here. I don't mean old, I mean familiar faces. It's okay. I just need to ask, it's always important to know what your audience is about. Is there anyone here that just never had any connection to criminal justice? Meaning yourself as a defendant, a family member, you're involved in law enforcement or the courts? Is there anybody here like that? Okay. Not too many, okay? So I don't want to be preaching to the choir because that's an easy thing to do. But the reality is it's not so much the criminal justice system it's at fault, it's that we are. We've allowed ourselves to be persuaded by politicians over all these years that we have to fear for our public safety. The reality is now we live in a time that's as safe as it's ever been, probably safer. And is it because we put people in prison? Probably not, although you play around with the numbers and people will say that. In fact, yesterday they had the funeral for the Whittier cop that was killed recently, and right at the beginning the pastor made some comment that, oh, politicians, please do something so this kind of thing doesn't happen. Meaning we're not putting the right people away or keeping them from getting out, and that's why these acts are being committed. It's a simplistic way of explaining something that really isn't the definition of what we're doing. The problem can't just be fixed internally. It has to be fixed externally. I mean, really, what we've lacked in this country is a sense of social, economic justice. I mean, who are the people that get put in prisons and jails? They're typically poor people, uneducated, dysfunctional families. Now, how do we stop that? We can't stop it as a society. We can't legislate it. We can't throw money directly at it. It has to be started slowly. I mean, children have to be raised in an environment by which they respect other people. But there's more to it than that. They have to be in an environment where they feel safe, where they feel safe to go to school, where they have people that are supporting of them. And unfortunately, that's not the case. Until that time comes, the things that we can do are many, but they're not going to necessarily take care of the entire number. Now, we all know there are certain people that need to be locked up, and maybe need to be locked up forever. But we've also known, and this has gone back to 1975 when I started working, that we probably were putting more people in jail and in prison than we needed to protect ourselves. I mean, really, criminal justice is all about ensuring public safety. If there's something that's involved in criminal justice and not ensuring public safety, we should ask ourselves, why are we doing it, right? Victimless crimes, they're beginning to be looked at in a slightly different fashion. The fact the war on drugs hasn't really stopped people from using drugs, has it? No. We can spend billions on trying to keep it from coming in. We can spend billions in trying to bust people and put them in, but crimes, use of drugs continues. And it continues for a lot of different reasons. It probably has to be taught from the early age that the drugs that people use, sometimes are an escape, sometimes it's a recreational thing, but it can also cause you significant problems down the line. We can't fix that by putting people in jail, but we've tried to do so. There are other crimes, prostitution, all right? Prostitution supposedly is a victimless crime unless people are exploited by being a prostitute. Is that something we can necessarily change by our criminal justice? Probably not. Now, probably every one of us has committed a crime, maybe even today. How many people have, in driving here, have exceeded the speed limit? Okay, yeah. How many people in the last 2 days have used their device, their handheld device, to their ear? All right. Oh, we know better. Criminal justice, our laws serve as a deterrent, usually for the people that have something to lose, right?